You know, the thing is that we've always talked about the problems. You can go back into 70s, even 60s, 70s.
The solutions are straightforward and easy.
It doesn't seem easy.
It's very easy. Let me tell you, it's very easy. The reason is some of us have reached the stage where we give lectures, right, on how other people will manage their economies. We give lectures on fiscalization. We give lectures on how you will create more reserves, how you will do something about GDP, not external reserve in terms of currency, grow your GDP. But you live in a country where most people who will come and you see them as gladiators cannot tell you the difference between deregulation, privatization, commercialization, you know, and liberalization. They don't know. So you are just in a train, you can end up anywhere. It's when you start seeing yourself being consumed that you will say, oh, I opted for deregulation. I thought I wanted liberalization. When you find out that you are being swallowed, you will begin to wonder and ask yourself and wish, oh, it should have been commercialization instead of privatization. But that's what we have found ourselves in.
You didn't quite complete your point about when they say no further allocation vis-a-vis the demands of the Avengers. And
the reason why I told you about my background was to just let you understand that with all sense of modesty and respect, some people don't know how we come about allocation. A lot of people don't know how you get into exploring. You can have an endowment. If you don't have regulatory, legal, and procedural framework, nobody will come into your country and contract with you. Having natural endowment is not enough. And one thing you need to understand, is this. If investors want to come into your domain and contract with you, the atmosphere and the environment must be conducive. There is also a big mistake we always make when you talk about this oil allocation, drilling, exploitation, and the rest. First of all, you need to see anybody coming into your country or anybody within your country who wants to invest as somebody who doesn't necessarily have idle funds. You can have your funds in two ways. It's either you got loans or you got capital, and there's something called cost of capital or interest. And if you are depending on your equity or shareholders, have it at the back of your mind that the shareholders of that company will demand for dividend. So anybody who is going to anywhere to contract, right, must have that at the back of his mind. If not, the company will not exist.
So does that mean that that demand of theirs is misplaced and cannot be actualized?
As far as, with due respect to anybody within among the NDA this time around, I'm not talking about Niger Delta citizens or people from Niger Delta or of Niger Delta extraction that have good knowledge of the oil and gas industry. Anybody that has a good knowledge of the oil and gas industry will not be talking like this. Because when you hear they said, okay, they've given X licenses to so number of people, go there. I'm a practitioner. I practice practically and physically in the oil and gas industry. How many of these companies are viable? How many are even there exploring?
But it's in the same country that we hear certain persons tell you, oh, during the former president or a certain president's time in this country, I saw how easy it was to be allocated oil block, but I opted not to take it. Others say, look, I have oil block, I have too much money, they don't know what to do.
Those were the days of lawlessness. And that was why a lot of us said we wanted to see the petroleum industry bill pass into law. Because if you look at the petroleum industry bill, there are you have different things that it was supposed to check. The excesses of probably a minister, the excesses of probably a president, you know, the way and manner you are going to manage the upstream, the downstream, and the midstream. But when you don't pass this, when you don't have a binding document, how do you expect somebody to take your country serious? And even when you talk about corporate social responsibilities, it's when you have something like that enshrined or well integrated or included in something like a PIB that I will know what my limits. Because when I come, you pay your royalties, you pay your taxes on other things. Then you're supposed to, corporate social responsibility is not obligatory. But sometimes you need it so that you will live peacefully with people in the community.
This is largely about resources and how to allocate or use these resources. So if they're going to go into negotiation with government, how do you see this playing out? Because if they say, look, this is about resources, because we have several conferences in this country. I don't know which one has been implemented or they plan to implement. So if they come to the table and they say, look, these are the injustices we want to be corrected, and that's why several groups keep springing up, and if they are stern on those demands, what do you think the government will do?
Well, the answers are also very simple. I mean, from 1983 to now is how many years? 33 years. I've been in the Niger, in the Niger Delta or in the South for the past 33 years. I was saying within the last 33 years, I mean, we've not been having agitations. I'm somebody who belonged in those days to the class or the group of people that used to listen to Ken Saro-Wiwa. Most of the people who are probably in this Niger Delta Avengers were probably young boys. There used to be a program in Port Harcourt then called Spotlight. Ask anybody who is probably 45 years and above. There used to be a program called Spotlight. When you go there, we listen to people like Ken Saro-Wiwa talking. We used to listen to people like Dr. Barinem Kyobel. Those guys that were, of course, who was executed with Ken Saro-Wiwa, these were people I knew. We used to go to Radio Rivers. We used to sit down with them. Some of the Kobani children were my schoolmates.
But it turns out the government didn't take them seriously.
No, not that the government didn't take them serious.
Yeah,
the people who were agitated,
those
who were agitating then are in their 40s and their 50s now. And some of them have probably been governors. Some have been senators. Right? Some have been local government chairmen.
Maybe you didn't get Chamberlain. He's saying that if all of those talks, till this moment, and someone had listened, we wouldn't have been here. There wouldn't have been an Avenger.
What I'm just trying to let you understand is this. In those days, right, people of the Niger Delta extraction were the same people that were supported then. And let's assume I am an agitator now, right? And you give me a lease of life. I will be surprised if somebody will come 10 years after me or 20 years after me agitating for the same thing, and you continue to blame probably the government. This time around, you should blame me. Because as at the time we were agitating, I was probably in my 20s.
Yeah, but bottom line, do you think that if there's been justice and equity all this while, will we have these agitations in different parts of the country?
The answer is no. And that was why I said it has to do with planlessness of the leaders. Because like I can tell you, if it were not for planlessness, how come you will say we are going to have refineries? Look at the way leaders behave in Nigeria. And I'm sorry to say this, with all sense of respect. It's only in Nigeria that leaders will tell you X in the morning. And by midday, they will be telling you why. There was a time, like I told you, we were told that we were going to have refineries. These things were discussed. We knew we were going to have maybe second Niger bridge. You knew you were going to dredge the river Niger. After a while, all these things were dropped. You don't play with the psyche of Nigerians like that. I can tell you, as far as I'm concerned, there is this world conference we call Offshore Technology Conference that takes place in Houston most of the time around May. As far back as 2010, the minister then told a world gathering like that PIB was going to be passed before the end of the year, right? I knew again during the 2012 protest against subsidy removal, right? We knew that there were promises, we're going to have refineries. Then somebody, a senior person in government went to UK and in a gathering said Nigeria was not going to be in the business of refining. And you're talking about a country like Nigeria whose economy is very, very weak, very fragile.
Do you agree with those who then say, in conclusion, that, look, they know what to do, the leaders, You don't need different groups coming year in, year out, asking for one thing or the other. They know what to do, just do it.
When you talk about our leaders today, I mean, because of still planlessness, because of lack of trust, whenever our leaders talk today, people don't believe them. But the summary of everything today is this. We are experiencing all kinds of calamities. We have lost our position as far as the OPEC ranking is concerned. We don't belong there. We are no longer the oil and gas or the industrial hub of sub-Saharan Africa or the continent of Africa. We have lost all those positions. As far as our integrity is concerned on the international pedestal, we are not being also respected. The way forward is this. We need to have what we call an integrative bargain or dialogue. And if you're going to do that, you still must have leaders that must lead. As far as I'm concerned, with due respect to the Niger Delta Avengers, leaders are those who will still sit down, discuss, and negotiate in national interests.
All right, good place to anchor. Zakka Bala is a petroleum engineer. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.